right, good morning, PTNI's Daily Show. Happy Tuesday morning, Merry Christmas Eve. Sorry this is so early, but our schedule here is a little bit crazy this morning because of Christmas Eve. Getting some patients and some CrossFit classes in super early before we shut down for the day. So today, I'm your host, Alan, by the way, faculty member of our Fitness Athlete Division, COO of ICE. Yesterday, if you joined us, we talked on Q&A Monday about how to change viewpoints in the clinic about deadlifting and lifting heavy and kind of in general how to change viewpoints, but specifically how to talk to people, talk to coworkers, talk to clinic directors about getting people deadlifting, getting people lifting heavy. And I want to kind of segue that today and show some techniques, some assessments as well to start loading the back up in the clinic. So a while ago, Mitch did a little case study with one of the athletes that he works with about really getting a stronger back. He talked about a couple of different techniques, but I want to show some of those, what those look like, the points of performance, that sort of thing, and also some stuff that you can do to assess who might be ready for deadlifts, who might be too acutely symptomatic for deadlifts, that sort of thing. So we're going to start with my fake foam roll patient here. When we talk about deadlifting, when we talk about lifting and loading the back, we're really talking about a couple of different issues. Who has flexion intolerant low back pain or who has trouble encountering an anterior shear force at the lumbar spine, who might have extension intolerant low back pain, who might have trouble with a posterior shear force at the low back, and then some combination present, usually who has issues with compression. So who can't tolerate compression to the spine. That's usually that patient that has trouble. They're fine if they're sitting and not moving. They're fine if they're laying and not moving. They're fine if they're standing, not moving. But those transitions when the spine encounters compression, when the spine is reintroduced to gravity, they get pain. We can have compression combined with both flexion and extension intolerant low back pain. So what do those patients look like? How can we try and kind of sort them out and then know who needs to be loaded? The answer is everybody, but how to load those folks most appropriately so that we respect their irritability and the severity of their symptoms. So the first thing we're going to do is work with our foam roller patient here. We're going to do the prone instability test. A lot of us are familiar with this test from school. The patient is going to lay prone over the edge of the table, have their hips on the table, and then all you're going to do is just give them some PA pressure through their lumbar spine in that lumbar region, and you're looking for reproduction of pain here. You're looking for them to say, ouch, that hurts when you push down there, wherever that may be. And then from that standpoint, what we're doing there is we're giving an anterior shear. We're introducing an anterior shear, which is what they would encounter bending over and picking something up, maybe deadlifting, maybe a front squat where they have force and load on the anterior side of the body that's shearing their lumbar spine anteriorly. Stu McGill showed us that's kind of the exact mechanism of what's happening in a deadlift. There's an anterior shear force at L3, L4, and L4, L5. And that's what you're doing with your hands. You're really giving a heavy PA force, trying to shear that spine and reproduce that pain. If that patient does say, ouch, you know they have a little bit of intolerance to that anterior shear. And then what you're going to do here is have them lift those legs off the table, activate that posterior chain, those hamstrings, those glutes, those paraspinals, and then you're going to re-give that shear force. If they say that actually feels better when they have their muscles activated, when their legs are hanging off the table, that actually feels better. That tells us when we turn those muscles on, when we fire those muscles on, it actually helps, and I hate to use the word stabilize, but it helps stabilize that spine a little bit. It helps prevent that anterior shear force of the spine, and they actually feel better. That's awesome. That's what you want to see with this test. That's what we call a prone get your back stronger test. When we activate those muscles maximally, that anterior shear force is tolerated a lot better. That means that person is probably a good candidate to try and get out into the gym and do some modification of deadlift training. We can also stay right here at the table, especially if their severity and irritability are pretty high, and we can do leg lifts for time. We can do isometric holds. We can do some ankle weights, some real gentle resistance with ankle weights, just lifting the legs. We can do one leg at a time, and we can bend the knees and kind of reduce the moment arm on those posterior muscles and have a lot more gentle force. We can do all that here without ever leaving the table. When that person is no longer challenged by table stuff, or they are a very, very active person who needs to get back to picking up heavier stuff, or you want to get them there, or that's one of their goals, then we can leave the table and go do some things in the gym. With this test, if that person lifts their legs and says, actually, that's making my pain a lot worse, or not changing my pain at all, I still have active pain lifting my legs, that's somebody who may be a little bit more sensitive to a posterior shear. And this is not where we're going to start that person. That person is not going to tolerate this very well when they have active pain or pain that increases when we would call these reverse hyperextensions, when we do these exercises. So we'll talk about some different ways in the gym to load that patient as well. So join me as we go to the gym. 6:50 a.m. There's already a bazillion people here working out. So here's a progression of the table. So this is a reverse hyperextension machine. This is very expensive. Obviously it's huge. Sometimes in gyms it's where people put their coat. It's often not utilized very well. But here, when that person progresses beyond the table, we can come to the reverse hyperextension. We can put a band around the bottom. We love to do this modification with a band around the bottom without even introducing any of the weights. Have that person pick up and lift against the band. We can do isometric holds there as well. We can do single leg stuff. When they've progressed beyond that, when they're getting pretty strong with bands and just isometric holds, we can take the band away. And then this machine is nice because we can get really, really, really heavy with plates and really, really start to get somebody's back strong. For that person who does do well with the prone instability test, that's a great progression for that person. In the clinic, just stay on the table, heavier and heavier and heavier ankle weights. You can put a weight belt around somebody's legs with some kettlebells or dumbbells and still get somebody loaded that way as well. For that person who lifts their legs and says, ouch, that's actually worse, what we're going to do is we're going to reverse that mechanism. 2 benches, 2 plinths, whatever you got. And so start really easy here. This is called a reverse plank. In the strength and conditioning research, it's called a Chinese plank, which may not be very politically correct these days, but if you're looking in the research, if you're looking at old strength and conditioning material, they're called Chinese planks. But a reverse plank, a supine plank, something like that. So with back and legs supported, we're now going to reverse that spinal mechanism, stick our butt between the bench, and just lift. So different from a bridge in that we're not using our legs and hamstring, we're really just using our back and core here. That's a really good one. You can start to put plates on people's chests. Maybe not dumbbells or kettlebells, that's probably not very comfortable. But for that person who has some posterior shear intolerance, some extension intolerance, that's a great way to start loading them that way. Put them between 2 benches, put them between 2 plinths in the clinic, and start to load up that reverse plank. We can do isometric holds. We can start to do concentric reps. We can do eccentric reps with load, and really, really, really load the back up that way. Now we're going to talk about that person who doesn't really tolerate compression too well, which may or may not be involved with somebody who is flexion intolerant or extension intolerant. So a lot of different ways to introduce compression. I like to start very, very gentle with a double kettlebell front rack hold. That looks like this. So making sure the handles touch, elbows in, and making sure that person isn't flaring back into compression and extension, which they're not going to tolerate. So drawing that rib cage down, holds here. We can do holds for time. We can do walks. We can do front squats. We can introduce all sorts of different ways of introducing that spinal compression with a little bit of load, ensuring that they are in that good front squat position and not flaring or extending backwards. From there, we can spice it up and we can go to some heavy, heavy, heavy overhead work. Taking that kettlebell now overhead, we can do holds, we can do walks, we can do overhead squats maybe as well. Really introducing a lot of compression, ensuring that person is not leaning sideways, ensuring they're not flaring back, introducing extension compression as with a heavy overhead kettlebell carry. My final way that I really like to introduce compression and a lot of heavy, this is great for postpartum, this is great for leg strengthening, is to introduce some sandbag marches, some D-ball marches, whatever you got. So hitting something heavy, holding onto it, and just marching. Right? Over time, it's going to work the legs, it's going to work the core and back. Same thing here. We don't want somebody flaring back into extension to get that hip flexion. If that range of motion looks smaller, that's fine. And just marching for time, marching for reps, introducing a lot of compression to the spine, ensure we have a nice tight braced core. And then finally, we can really, really spice that up. We can do a sandbag march with kind of a belt squat modification that we use here in the gym. If you have a belt squat machine, that's awesome. They're expensive, they're huge, but I'll show you how to set that up. That looks like this. That looks like a very heavy band. That looks like a little dip belt, and then we're gonna combine that together. These you can buy anywhere, sporting goods store, Amazon. They're like $10 to do weighted pull-ups and dips. Step into it. And then what we're going to do now, hook it up underneath the seat. So now kind of a belt squat variation. We can march here. Just get the resistance from the band, but now we can also add in the resistance from the sandbag, the D-ball. Now, belt squat, we call this a march variation. Like that. The trickiest part is getting out of it. Let's go back next door, where it's a little bit quieter, where the dogs have gotten loose. Okay, so a couple different techniques. Go. A couple different techniques for folks with flexion intolerance, with extension intolerance, and with compression intolerance, and kind of combining all those together, how to progress them. Obviously, we need a little bit of weight, especially for somebody that we want to make stronger into compression, but knowing how to assess who's going to respond well to flexion, who's going to respond well to extension, who might not be ready yet for some deadlifts, who might need a different variation, that supine plank, that Chinese plank, and a couple different ways to introduce compression, loaded compression, progress somebody back to being able to tolerate compression. Obviously, throughout all this, we're, especially for an acutely irritable person, we're going to be introducing some sort of cardio interval as well to flush that inflammation out and make all of this that more well tolerated. So I hope that helps. Sorry it's a little bit noisy. I tried to beat all the gym members here. Did not work. They were here 20 minutes earlier than the gym was supposed to be open, but that's the way it goes. So hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year. I think I will be back on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. We're going to be talking about some different ways, some different manual therapy techniques for lumbar radiculopathy, lumbar radiculitis, some things you can do with your hands to calm down that really flared up person who has a lot of back-related leg pain. So hope that helps. Merry Christmas. See you all next week. Have a great Tuesday. Have a great week. Hope you enjoy some time off with friends and family. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.